tantric traditions, after one does 3-year retreat, sometimes one has to go living in the wild and just hunting and gathering for one's foodstuffs, even though traditionally in the ordinary world, one should not harm other living beings, but one doesn't look upon it as harming them. One looks upon it as bringing them into one's enlightenment path. So everything one does can be spiritual if one does it in a spiritual way. And having the bodhicitta motivation is always at the root of everything. I like to tell the story which the seventh Dalai Lama mentions in one of his books that I translated. I used it in the Practice of Kala Chakra book. And it's his preparing the mind for tantric initiation, in which he says, if we want to go to enlightenment, everything comes down to motivation. If motivation is positive, in other words, if it's bodhicitta motivation, it goes in the right direction, even if the action is seemingly wrong. Like Tilopa, for instance, working as an assistant to a courtesan. Some people might say, well, that's not a very good sort of next step for a monk. But in his case, it was. And it comes down to motivation. And the seventh Dalai Lama tells the story of a man meditating in the forest, and he had very deep samadhi, and someone walking by, and it's starting to rain, and so this fellow's in a deep samadhi meditating, and there's an old boot beside the road, and so the man picks up the old boot and puts it upside down on the meditator's head, kind of as an umbrella, thinking that would be nice to keep the top of his head, his yushnisha, his hair knot, dry. And a couple of hours or a day or something goes by, and someone else walks by and sees the meditator with a boot, and he said, and he thinks to himself, what a practical joker did that. What a silly idea to trick a meditator by putting an old boot on his head when he's in deep samadhi. So he takes the boot off. And the second Dalai Lama points out that the same action is equally karmically meritorious. Les Zombo in Tibetan, karmically meritorious.